Hey everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod here with our first post-game analysis of the season on MSU's very pedestrian 75-66 win over the Bowling Green Falcons at the Breslin Center. We're live on YouTube and X and Instagram, and hopefully things will work well. And if we expand our coverage and try and reach more and more Spartan fans, feel free to drop in a comment while we're talking here. This is then a very good reminder to help support the show, where you get ad-free versions of the show either through a Patreon or Substack. Just head on over to our support page at tffinots.com/support to find the necessary links to keep us on the air and continue improving our content and coverage of the Spartans. Also, as a reminder that the Beat Rod contest is accepting entries. Send along your prediction to me, Eric, that's ERIC, at tffinots.com of the final Big Ten standings 1 through 18 as a tiebreaker. Remember, that's going to be, you have to guess how many points Michigan State scores against Michigan this season. They play twice. I've already started getting entries. Get yours in before the Big Ten games begin, first couple days of December, something like that. No cost to enter, just some great prizes from Nudge Printing for winning. Okay, Rod, so let's talk about the game again today. I mean, Michigan State was up 10, I believe, or 11 and a half, all the 9.5. I guess it was kind of an uninspiring sort of game. You kind of expect a little sleepy. I felt like from at least from an exhibition game, a little bit more rotation players in the first half. And I think the second half, it tightened up a little bit. Certainly the beginning of the second half. I thought, as opposed to last season, you could definitely see a big difference, big change from starters to non-starters. And it seemed more evident to me. I think there was just a bigger drop off. I think once you went away from the starters. Kurt Tang started in, which we weren't sure, but that was your hunch that he'd start at the 2 over Trey Fort. We saw just about everybody play except Nick Sanders. And, I think we'll go through the keys of the game later, but I think overall they looked okay. I think Bowling Green is maybe better than last year a little bit, but they were defensively, I think they were pretty average. I guess there was nothing about the game that stood out to me too much from the Bowling Green standpoint. They had a lot of guys who could shoot and stretch the floor. They had a lot of most of their players, and some occasions were just all on the perimeter. It was kind of weird, but they certainly played more conventional basketball, which is what we also anticipated. So it wasn't a very like you had talked about earlier, like Carson Cooper running after a 6'5" guy out there. Right. And Michigan State looked pretty good. I would say the one thing that really stood out to me is Jeremy Fears really looked good. He looked like there was a marked difference when he was not in the game. I think defensively he could be better, but he's still very good. But offensively, they were much, much better and crisper when he was playing. And so that was what I took. And then, of course, overall, I think the players we were expecting more from, Cooper, Kohler, and Carr, in addition to Fears, I think were improved. And certainly, people I'm sure get excited about Jeremy Fears going 2 for 4 from 3 in this game. But his shot looked pretty good, just like I think it had looked last season as well. Just, he's a little more confident shooting, I suppose.
I am always happy when I look at Tom Izzo's post-game press conference and he says exactly the things I was thinking when I was watching it. And that happened today.
Yeah.
I thought in the first half, absent maybe a couple of early possessions against the zone, because Bowling Green mixed their defense. They did play a lot of zone. Absent a couple of the early possessions against the zone where it looked a little clunky, I thought the offense in the first half looked really good for late October.
Right. And a lot of players who haven't played together. I mean,
a lot of that was what you talked about. A lot of that was Jeremy Fears.
Yeah.
Really, I think, running the show effectively, but not just him. You had Trey Fort had a feed against the zone with the shot clock running down. He could have easily forced a jumper. Instead, he split 2 defenders to find Jesse McCullough for a wide open jumper against the clock from about, 8 feet maybe, which Jesse hit. Really nice play. Divine Ugochukwu had a great baseline no-look pass to Carson Cooper for an and 1 in the first half. A lot of guys, Cohen Carr was playmaking. He did everything, but one of the things he was doing is he was making plays. I think he ended with 4 assists. So in the first half, I was pretty. Oh, by the way, they shot 42-point-something% from 3 in the first half.
In the first half, yeah.
So the offense looked really good. The defense and the rebounding were very, 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 very subpar.
Yep.
In the second half, the offense struggled. Wasn't a total disaster, but they didn't shoot threes as well. They were only 2 for 11 after I think they were 6 for 14 in the first half. The rebounding was maybe marginally better, but still not up to par.
Yep.
And defensively, it was maybe a little bit better. You know, this game, talking about the defense first, it was a prime example of why you do not evaluate a defense based on the loud plays that they make. Michigan State had 14 blocks.
Right.
I don't know the last time they had that many. I'd have to look. I'm going to guess it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe ever, because in the old days they didn't used to count. They didn't used to count shot blocks. If you go back like to the 60s and 50s, that wasn't a stat they kept. I don't ever remember them having more. I think they also had, let me look at this. I think
6 steals.
6 steals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 20 between blocks and steals. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and if you're a simpleton, you would say, wow, they were really great defensively. No, they weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't horrible, but they weren't at the level that we expect. And the good news is this. The good news is I didn't see anything that looked, I'll go to my favorite line Dan Campbell gives after every game, win or lose, where he's talking about whatever the things were they didn't do well, and usually it's after a win. And he'll say, but it's all correctable. It's all correctable. Well, the stuff I saw tonight falls into that bucket. It's correctable. I didn't see situations where you looked at a guy and said, oh my God, he doesn't have the physical capability to guard someone. Like if you see someone, and we've seen this in the past at MSU, where somebody just cannot move well enough laterally. It wasn't that. It was just lack of attention to detail. I thought they got burned. Trail guys, when Bowling Green was running some motion stuff, so they were running guys through picks. So the trail guy was not in touch with the guy who was guarding enough. They got burned on a few of those. Cohen Carr got smoked on one in the first half. Other guys got beat as well because of that. I thought they did a terrible job at times locating and closing on jump shooters. Towns couldn't miss.
Yeah,
and
he was very good.
Jackson
the first half,
Kohler,
especially.
it was not a lack of physical ability. It was just a lack of recognition or respect for Towns. I don't know what it was, but it got so bad that they switched Carson Cooper onto him in the second half when those guys were out there together. And Carson did a little bit better job, at least in terms of holding down the attempts. But that was a disgrace. The rebounding, disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. We talked about it in our preview. There is no good reason for this team to not at least be on par with what last year's group was rebounding wise, because the guys who were the big contributors in that area are mostly all back other than Zapala. And, you know, the guards weren't huge contributors to that. They contributed some, but not massively. No excuse for it. Jackson Kohler somehow had 10 rebounds in that game. I don't know how.
He had 8 in the second half, I think, or something.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
I know that. He had 8 defensive rebounds in the second half, but I still don't know how he reached double digits. That is and look, I love Jackson Kohler, and he did do some good things tonight. That was the softest double-double I've ever seen in my life. Carson Cooper, not good. Got his ass kicked a few times on the boards. And I saw Izzo in his post game basically say the same thing. He said he pulled out the old chestnut about maybe it's time to break out the shoulder pads. He's right, because that was a soft effort in the areas that that require grit, toughness, all of that stuff, energy, effort, all that stuff. Michigan State did not meet program standards tonight at all. That's the disappointing thing. Now, they're going to get their asses chewed between now and the UConn game, and we'll see if that improves in the UConn game. I'm going to suspect it will. You know, we said coming in, Bowling Green had size, so the expectation was, well, physically at least, they look like they should be able to give you a good challenge, and they did. They out-rebounded Michigan State. marginally. Michigan State got better in the second half there. Actually, I'll say this, got some cheap ones late to make it look better than it was. I shouldn't say cheap. They got some ones late from Cam Ward and Jesse McCullough, who at least were playing hard, and that evened it up. Both teams had 9 offensive rebounds apiece. I think Bowling Green narrowly won the rebounding rate battle, barely.
By 1.
Yeah, right. So, but that's the thing. You're Michigan State. You don't fight Bowling Green to a draw. So that's disappointing. I think that's the downside. And again, correctable. I have seen Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper and Cohen Carr rebound better than this. I expect that they will. But that was disappointing because there were occasions where sometimes we talk about, there were a lot of long rebounds and they were a little unlucky. No, they got their ass kicked. They got their ass kicked at the rim too many times. That should not happen. So that's my negative on this game. On the positive end, and there were positives, there were a lot of positives. You mentioned Jeremy, so we'll start there. If I listened to certain quarters of the Michigan State fan base, I would believe that Jeremy Fears might not make 2 threes all year. He was 2 for 4 tonight, and they all looked good.
Yeah,
the release was good. It was quick. He looked confident, didn't hesitate. Plus grade. That's a check mark from him. The way he ran the team, 9 assists, 2 turnovers. That's Jeremy Fears, man. That's a guy running the show, making plays, getting them into transition. And, when you talk about a drop-off, I thought Ugochukwu had a decent game. He had 4 assists to 1 turnover. But I will tell you where the difference is. The difference, and it shouldn't be. I hope and I think it's just going to be that there's more reprogramming that needs to be done with him. But you could see the difference when Jeremy Fears was running the point and they were getting into transition versus when Ugochukwu was.
Yeah, they were attacking versus just
big difference. Yeah.
Right.
Much more passive when the latter was out there. Now, Ugochukwu was a good enough athlete and I think is a good enough playmaker that there shouldn't be that big a drop off. So hopefully that's, again, reprogramming that's going to change that. But that's where Jeremy makes a big difference. Defensively, I actually thought he did a pretty good job because they had him most of the night on Campbell. And Campbell, I believe, ended up 5 for 20 from the floor. Yeah, 5 for 20 from the floor. So I thought Jeremy was okay there. I mean, could he be better? Yeah, but he was pretty good, and he was more consistent, I think, than, it's a funny thing too. Like I say, it wasn't that, you had a bunch of guys getting blown by, or you had, guys who just physically, other than when Wojcik had to guard a 6'4" guy. That was the only time I saw somebody physically just overmatched.
Yeah.
It wasn't that stuff. It was just lack of focus, lack of attention to detail, maybe some lack of recognition or lack of respect being accorded to the opposition at times. I don't know. But Jeremy was probably their best possession-to-possession defender, which is not a surprise because that's what he does.
Yeah.
So I think a plus from him. Cohen Carr, other than the fact that I know he can contribute more on the glass, and he had 1 or 2 poor defensive moments, but a lot more positive ones. He looked like the guy I think people have been expecting him to look like. He looked like a guy who's probably going to be a first-round draft pick next year. That's what he looked like.
I agree.
Because athletically, we are now to the point, and we saw it coming last year, but we are now to the point where all of his athleticism is unleashed because he's developed the ball skill and the confidence to make it a major, major impact event. And look, he only took 1 3. He missed it. I think we know he's going to shoot at least decently. That's my expectation this year with the jumper. So when that comes around, and he somehow shot free throws poorly tonight. Izzo said in the post game he's been nails in practice. So
Yeah.
I don't expect this is any indication that it's back to the struggles of his freshman year. I think he just had a weird night. But man, there were times where he looked every bit an NBA player.
Yep,
tonight.
for sure.
And so that's great to see that the guy you're expecting, hey, this is the guy who's got to be the alpha offensively for us. He looked it. I talked about Jackson. I was disappointed with a 10 rebound night, but I was. And disappointed defensively in the job he didn't do on their power forward. But offensively, I don't have many complaints. The three, he was 1 for 4 from 3, but they all looked confident. They all looked good, and he hit the first one, so that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he showed some good stuff in the post. I thought he was active, and they were active in trying to look for him. There was one play I really loved, a dump down. It was actually more Cam Ward than Jackson Kohler, but Cam Ward,
his pass to him. Yeah,
great recognition to find Jackson in the post. But then Jackson finished, and that hasn't always been an automatic for him. So we got to give credit where it's due. So offensively, I don't have any complaints. Pretty decent game from him. Not a great night for Carson Cooper. He had 3 blocks, so I guess that's good. But he didn't really, and then there wasn't anything in pick and roll where I thought he got exploited. It really wasn't. They weren't running a lot of that top side pick and roll stuff anyway, not as much as we'll see most other nights. But to only have 4 rebounds, that's not Carson Cooper's game. And he was the one in particular I was most disappointed with, seeing him just get beat inside. Should not happen. And I think it was that he was just a little late in reacting, and other guys just beat him to a spot, and he couldn't recover. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. Offensively, he didn't have a big night, but I'm not, we know he's capable of giving more this year, but I also don't think they're going to look to him to be a consistent, go-to guy who's going to take like 8-9 shots a game. That's probably not going to happen on a regular basis. Kerr, I thought, was okay. Better in the one of the few guys you could say was better in the second half because he actually hit a couple shots, got some momentum. Mm-hmm. He'll have better nights shooting the ball. Defensively, I thought he was a guy. I would expect a little more from him out there, to be frank. I actually liked Trey Fort's game more tonight. I thought, and that's not just because, it's easy to say, well, he went 3 for 5 from 3. That's why you liked it. But I actually thought, for all the stuff we've heard about defensively, and this team has some wings that can play. I mean, I'm not going to build Bowling Green up into something they're not, but that's not a terrible group. And so he had to guard some guys that looked like they could make plays. And I thought he looked solid. He didn't get embarrassed. I know that much. Now, was he locked into all the level of detail and, switching and recovery and playing being gap sound and all the stuff they talk about? I don't know. I mean, that's something I guess you'd need to look at the tape again.
Watch the film,
do that. But I thought, just to the naked eye, I thought he was fine. And if he's fine, then I think he plays more.
Yep.
Because offensively, Kerr's going to have better days, but there's no doubt that Trey Fort right now, at least, is a more dynamic offensive player. He can do more.
Right, he can move off the ball, and that's one thing you saw with Kurtang, and somebody just mentioned too that he just looked uncomfortable driving the ball. And there's no question he looked a lot like what Cone Carr looked like his freshman year. I felt where he'd try and drive and just would always just kind of run into walls and just have.
I think Kerr. Realistically, I think Kerr is going to be a weapon in transition and as a spot up shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's whereas Trey Fort is a more complete offensive player. Trey Fort has a better handle. He's more confident with it. He's probably stronger. He's more athletic. I think he could just do more. So I was actually pretty happy with what we saw from Trey Fort. And then we could talk about some of the new guys.
Yeah.
I thought Jesse McCullough really
impressed me a lot.
something late.
Yeah.
And again, he hit the 1-3. Great. We know he can do that. But I liked the way he rebounded. I liked the way he competed on defense. You know, he got taken to the woodshed inside by the Goins kid, who weighs about, they list him at 275. He's over 300.
Yeah, for sure. He's huge.
For an N1. But I actually didn't think Jesse committed a foul. I already bodied
he just
him.
got kind of shoved out of the way.
Straight.
Yeah.
I went up straight. I liked the way he competed on that possession. And, you know, but I just liked in that second half. And it's funny because we were getting down to like 6 or 7 minutes left in the half, and he hadn't played in the second half. And I wondered, like, why have we not seen him? And then they brought him in, and boy, he did some things. So I was really happy with him. He showed me everything I had expected to see. And I think that Michigan State should be just fine in terms of their depth inside. Also, because they have Cam Ward.
Yeah.
And Cam Ward, I talked about Michigan State not competing with the kind of toughness and energy that you need. Can't say that about Cam Ward. Cam Ward had 6 rebounds in 17 minutes.
Yeah, and I think he had about 5 of them in about 6 minutes.
Yeah, and they came late. But you know what?
Yeah.
I don't care when they came in this instance. He competed in a way that some of the veterans didn't match. I mentioned he had the one great drop down look to Kohler in the post. He had in the first half when they were battling the zone late in the shot clock, hit a nice mid-range turnaround, looked smooth. He was only 1 for 4 from the floor, but there were a couple of tough misses inside that I'm not holding against him. They were in traffic. He was competing. I really liked what he gave them. So bullish on Cam Ward. We talked a bit about Ugochukwu. I thought that, you know, I mentioned he had the one no look on the baseline to Cooper for an N1 that was a really nice play. Really nice. I thought there were moments where he showed some things defensively where you saw maybe the impact of that 6'8" wingspan. And again, 4 assists to 1 turnover. You're going to take that kind of efficiency. The one thing I didn't like, he also had one really athletic rebound on the defensive end, which I like too. His good instincts and good athleticism on display. The one thing I didn't like, besides what we'd already talked about, that he didn't push enough in transition, that during that stretch in the second half where Bowling Green came back and eventually tied it, I think there were 2 straight possessions where he launched a 3.
Yeah, bad 3s.
They were open shots. And his shot, we know he's not a 17% shooter. His shot looks better than that. He will shoot better than that. But that's a shot selection and understand the moment kind of thing, kind of test that he failed. So that's the one negative about Devine, I think, in this game is, okay, you lost your mind for about a minute. Can't be the guy in that situation where you're just trying to get a bucket just to stem the tide and settle it down. We don't need you taking a 3. If that's Trey Fort, if that's Kurt Tang, even if that's Kohler, maybe even Fears, I'm okay. Not Devine. Not yet. He hasn't earned that.
I also think he's got the ability to drive. He's pretty quick. I mean, in that situation, you need a bucket. It's always easier to go get a 2 or go get a foul. And that's just a recognition. He's got to know better to do that.
That's what I'm getting at. I would have been fine if he took the ball to the rack. They needed a basket. You have to feel it. You have to feel that moment and say, we got it. These guys are on a run. They've tied it up. We need a basket to stem the tide, regain momentum in our direction. So what do? If you are not a knockdown 3-point shooter who's a reserve, don't take the 3. In that situation. When the game is in a different flow, fine, but not then. That's something that comes with experience and all that. So I'm not, reading the riot act. I'm just pointing out that was the one negative sequence that I saw from him. And it's illustrative of a young player who hasn't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
Jordan Scott, unfortunately, got 2 quick fouls in the first half and never really got on track and didn't play a lot. He played very late in the second half, didn't really get a chance to do anything. So kind of an incomplete from him. Wojcik, same thing. I mentioned he got overwhelmed on a couple possessions by trying to guard a 6'4" or 6'7" guy. Probably not something they're going to ask him to do in the regular season, I'm going to guess. So I don't hold that against him either. I think that's everybody, right?
That's pretty much, that's the whole team, I think.
So there's some good, there's some good in all that. I don't want to cast an overly negative take on this thing. Everybody except probably Scott and Wojcik had some good moments. Mm-hmm. And you can see, you mentioned there being a drop off from last year. Well, here's what you're not going to see going forward, but you saw in this game. I don't think you're going to see many times where it's 5 reserves out there together.
Right.
And we did see that.
The line shifts. Yeah.
We're not going to see that.
Yeah.
So that's going to likely make things look a little different. I actually do think this should be a pretty good bench. Last year's standard is a very tough one to meet, but I like when you think about it, Cam Ward and Jesse McCullough are your backups at the 4 and the 5. I'm pretty good with that. Based on what I know and based on what I saw tonight, I saw reason to be encouraged. Do we think that Ugochukwu can be, a solid 10-minute a night guy at the point, 10, 12 minutes? Yeah, I do. There's some developing to do, but I feel okay about that.
Yeah.
I think the wings is where maybe, the Fort-Tang combination at the 2 had some moments, both of those guys. We need more. And then we didn't get to really see anything out of Jordan Scott tonight, so we don't know yet what he may be able to contribute. But they seem to be bullish on him in practice, so I'll suspend judgment for now. I think it's the wise move. But I think this can be a good bench. It's just it's not going to be that, hey, everybody's between 18 and 22 minutes a night. What we know is that Cohen Carr and Jeremy Fears, for sure, I think are going to be 30-minute a night guys.
I think
unless foul trouble intervenes, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then from there, everybody else, Jackson probably plays a little
high 20s.
more.
Yeah, mid-20s.
Mid to high 20s. Coop maybe gets low to mid-20s.
Yep.
But then from there, I was more impressed with Trey Fort tonight than Kurtang, but they're both going to play a lot, and that could easily flip against UConn. Kerr could go out there and go 5 for 7 from 3, and we're singing a different tune, right? So I don't think that's determined yet.
Yeah.
But I am encouraged by the potential of this team having depth, and I think that starting lineup is going to be pretty good. I do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think, you look at positionally, like in the 5, where you have a Zapali replacing McCullough. I think that's an upgrade from last year. I mean, from what little we've seen, you got somebody who's a little bit more versatile. I mean, Zapali
absolutely
was a little bit bigger, but I don't think there's any question that McCullough's an upgrade there. Is Ward an upgrade over Fiddler? I think probably so. I mean, it's still early, but I think that's unquestionable. So
I do think so.
Right there. You don't have a Jace Richardson, but maybe we do somewhere. Maybe Trey Ford turns in. It's not like Jace Richardson was Jace Richardson at the beginning of the season either. So there's a lot yet to be seen. And
that's what I want to look. I think that what could really be a difference maker for this team, based on what I saw tonight and what I've felt all along, can Trey Fort be solid enough defensively to play the kind of minutes that would allow his offensive game to really impact? I mean, he's going to score anyway, but there's a difference between 9 points a game and 14 points a game.
Yeah.
And I really do think you could see it tonight. Other than Carr, who looked more capable of being a guy who could go on a, 8-point run in 2 minutes? He's it. I mean, Kohler is going to score. Yep. Fears, I thought, was more aggressive. And besides the threes, he finished at the rim in traffic on an occasion or two. I liked that. Mm-hmm. And he was aggressive in trying to take those opportunities and get himself to the line. So I liked all that. But Trey Fort could well be your second or third leading scorer pretty easily on this team. Yeah. I think that the package is there for that, but he's got to play enough for that to happen. And the way he plays enough is by showing enough defensively that it allows them to stay on the floor. So if you get that Trey Fort who could play 24 minutes a night instead of maybe 18, and do so with maybe more efficiency, that could take the ceiling of this team up a level. Because that gives them, and for everything that Cohen did, and it was great, you're still probably not very often just going to put the ball in Cohen Carr's hands at the top of the key and say, go get a bucket.
Yeah, he's not quite there.
Yeah, that's not his game. I don't know if that'll ever be his game. He's certainly capable from the wing of penetrating, getting himself around the basket and scoring.
Driving the baseline. Yep.
Yeah, he could do those things. But Trey Fort's the guy who I think could emerge as that kind of offensive weapon. What they had with Jace Richardson as last year evolved, right? He became that guy, the one guy they had that you could say, here's the ball, go get us a bucket.
Yep.
Yep.
And, Mark F.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and Mark F. just mentioned YouTube. So he just said he doesn't feel the team is the Big Ten champion caliber, but Cohen Carr will Euro step that's into tourney bid. I would, and I think, to your point just now, I do think this is a little early. And I think, you look at Purdue's the clear best team in the Big Ten right now, but that's because they've got three veterans who have been, started every game for 3 seasons, and this will be their 4th year. And so they're going to be a lot more polished to start the year than Michigan State is. Can Michigan State get up to their level? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, but you can definitely see intriguing parts and pieces. You can imagine that they're going to make it very competitive once the Big Ten play starts.
You're right on the money. When we talk about the depth, Michigan State's experience is really in its starting lineup. Once you're getting to the depth, Jesse McCullough, first year playing, Cam Ward, first year playing, Kurt Tang, really first year playing, Divine Ugochukwu, second year playing, but first at Michigan State, and Jordan Scott, first year playing. That's a lot of firsts, right?
Yeah.
What that usually means at Michigan State is the way it looks in January, February, it's very different than the way it's going to look in early November. So I do think that's a good point. You cannot assume that the Michigan State we are going to see when you and I are at the Champions Classic is the same Michigan State we're going to see down the stretch of the Big Ten in late February. Hey, look, the Michigan State we saw in early mid-November last year was not the Michigan State we saw in February.
Not even close, if you think about it. I mean, Fiddler's starting. I mean, it's like a totally different team.
They played a game against Memphis that they lost where they were competitive, but they weren't really ever in it. They lost in who was it in the Champions Classic last year? Kansas? Yeah.
Kansas, yeah.
Kansas, yeah.
Who wasn't very good either,
they competed, but Kansas wasn't great either, and they didn't win.
Yeah.
So and then you look at March and you got an Elite 8 team. So I don't think if any, and no offense to that poster, but I mean, and I didn't pick Michigan State to win the Big Ten either, but you can't proclamations made in an exhibition game based on an exhibition game in October. Come on. What are we doing?
Yeah. No, I know. You just need time. All right. So let's move on and we'll begin with the brothers, JSU gutters. Player to keep in the gutter. The brothers, this is, it is absolutely time. If you've not yet taken care of your gutters, you've got to be having leaves piling up in there. Make sure you have to call the brothers to take care of it. They'll get up on the ladders, clean them out. They'll put the leaf guards on so you don't have to call them again. So you don't have to clean up the gutters yourself. Maybe you've got a leaky gutter or downspout. They can fix it as well. Whether it's your home or your business, contact the brothers today. They're out in full force right now. Best time to get a hold of them. You also get 10% off as a listener or viewer of the show at our support page. Just head on over to tffinots.com/support. There you can find a link for either the west side or the east side of the state. Greg or Kurt will take great care of you, and they'll get things taken care of right away. And again, great pricing. They've taken care of Rod's home. They take care of my home. And they just do great work. So I would highly recommend them to come out and take care of you. All right. So they've sponsored a player to keep in the gutter, which was Javonte Campbell, who, I think, generally speaking, Michigan State did a pretty good job on him in the first half, especially. Second half, he got going a little bit, and his game is getting to the hole. They're getting to the rack. So he scored 12 points. He was 5 of 20 from the field. Not great. Over 5 from 3, which is kind of what, his resume was coming in.
Yep.
Only 2 for 5 from the free throw line. He had 9 rebounds, though, one of them offensive. And I think most of those came in the first half, I believe. 5 assists to 2 turnovers, which is better than he was averaging last year. He was about a 1-to-1 last year. He had a steal, no blocks. I think in general, they sort of kept him in the gutter. I think we've always kept him in the down spot. Look, they didn't do that with Towns, but he was definitely the guy that
the kid shot 50% from the floor last year.
Yeah,
they held him 25%.
25 is pretty good.
On 20 shots. Yes, they did. They kept him in the gutter. Now, as you say, somebody else got loose, but sometimes that's what happens.
Well, someone's got to get loose, right? I mean,
that as much as anything else was testament to the defensive job Jeremy Fears did. Yeah. Jeremy Fears was actually, he maybe wasn't as demonstrative as we've seen him at times with applying real in your face to ball pressure, but I think he had a lot to do with that. Not alone. You need other guys in that gap system they play, being gap sound to help cut off penetration alleys for a player like Campbell. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the job they did.
It'd be interesting too to look back, and I don't know when Campbell scored. He might have gotten a lot of those layups when Jeremy was not in, because I do remember him getting like 3 or so in the second half. In like about a 5 or 6 minute stretch, but maybe Jeremy was off the floor. I don't remember, to be honest.
I think he would. No, I think he was on the floor. But there, you know what? Those were, as I'm recalling, those were all, or at least most of them, were pretty tough makes. Those were plays where they had guys in the area and they had size at the rim. And he just made the shot. And sometimes you got to just tip your hat. Again, a 6'2" kid who shot 50% from the floor last year, he obviously is able to finish plays.
Yeah. So especially when he's shooting 20% or 25 from 3. And he's really doing
right to get to 50% overall. Yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just got to say, all right, good defense got beat by better offense, and that will happen. But overall, I've got no problem with the way they handled him.
All right, so then we go on to Who Cleans the Glass Best, brought to you by the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. It's funny, when we go to the games, my wife always listens to the pregame show. She never listens to the post, so she has no idea what we say now. But we, of course, are running late because she got sick at work. But she's like, oh, you know what? You need to call the Squeegee Squad and have them come back because our Windows has been a little over a year now, I think. And she's like, yeah, they're getting kind of dreary. She's actually... so anyway, that's my next call, I guess, tomorrow. I got to get old Troy and his team and have them take care of things. So make sure you call them as well, whether you're in the Grand Rapids area or just the greater Grand Rapids area. It's a very large region. You can find them at our support page at tffinots.com/support. They do fantastic work inside, the outside, the windows, the screens, the blinds, all the stuff you actually won't wash yourself. They'll get up in the second story. They'll get on the ladders again, so you don't have to. So contact the Squeegee Squad, have them take care of things. You get 15% off. You mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate, just like you get 10% off for the brothers Just Do Gutters if you mention Final Four. So do that today. Again, I get their support page at tffinots.com/support. Well, it was an exhibition game, so this did not count. And so I've not changed the score. It's still 0-0. I had Kohler and Ward, and you had Cooper and Carr. And Kohler had 10, and your two had 4 and 5 combined. Ward had another 6, so it was kind of like a runaway.
Almost doubled me up.
Yeah. I mean, Kohler just by himself won. But at halftime, I think he had 1 rebound, maybe 2.
Yeah, he had got 2. All those. He had 8 in the second half.
Yeah,
and Ward picked up most of his in the second half as well.
And probably the last 4 minutes of the game, I think.
So
really,
you had a late run. Thank God it doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, now you're all in favor of it not counting. So
yeah, it sounds a good idea to have this be a warm-up.
All right, finally, we go to the 5 keys of the game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. Nudge Printing, of course, is the one that's sponsoring our Beat Rod contest. So there are prizes for Nudge Printing. No charge to enter that. Enter today. Again, just sending me an email. You get $100 or $50, depending on your first or second place for Nudge Printing. It buys you a lot of great Spartan apparel. And if you need Spartan stuff, there's no better place than Nudge Printing. I'm wearing one right now. This is actually our logo sweatshirt, but we've got quarter zips. We've got t-shirts. Also, you can get little stickers too. They do laser printing as well. But any sort of other Spartan apparel. My son got a Sparty golfing one. They've got hockey. They've got football, obviously, basketball. They've got vintage logos and just current ones. So really, whatever you're in the shopping for, whether it's a hat or something, go to Nudge Printing. It's great pricing, quick shipping, and you can get 20% off. You just type in Final Four as one word for being a viewer or listener of the show. Go to nudgeprinting.com, type in the coupon code. You'll be very happy you did it. And if you do get a gift for your friend or family member, make sure you get something else for yourself so you don't just take their gifts. We've had people do that before. I had someone mentioning he bought a Nudge sweater last week, super high quality. So yep, Mark, you're right. They're the best stuff. And the only problem with it is they last forever. So that, eventually you start accumulating too much stuff. All right. So 5 keys of the game. We begin with number 1, which is the boards, rebounding. And I think we can.
Was it? I thought health was
wasn't.
number 1.
It was health was number 1.
Yeah.
I did not change the 5 keys of the game. So we're going to have to I just realized that this is what happens when I do things on the fly. So it was health was number 1. Everyone stayed healthy. So I guess that was.
Yeah, those are not our keys.
They are not. They're the keys they're keys, I think, for the Auburn game. Probably back, back in the spring. As I was trying to get things together.
All right. So health, obviously, didn't see any indication.
Well, I can't hear Rod right now, so I don't know what happened. You have to try and get back in here, Rod. And so I'm going to have to try and scramble and try and figure out what the second key of the game is. I apologize, folks. This is what happens when you do things, try and get it all together at the last second when getting back from the game. So the second key to the game was, that was the transition game. In the transition game, I thought Michigan State was very good. They had 24 points fast break, although we've talked before, Rod, and it doesn't seem like sometimes those fast break points are accurate, but it certainly felt like it was that was the right amount. Let's see if Rod's coming back here. He's not right now. So let's see here. Let's see if I can find Rod. Sorry. Let me just get him back here. He's still in the studio, so he's here somewhere. Yeah, Mark absolutely poor Rod. We'll see if we get Rod back in. But it was definitely, I thought, especially when you saw Jeremy, especially with Jeremy, and there's no question that the fast break game was much better. And that was definitely the difference you saw with, I thought, Divine, that he was just a guy who sort of got the ball up quickly. He looked like a traditional sort of point guard was my impression. I don't know what you guys think. All right, you're back.
Oh.
You're back.
Well, you know what? It's
your speaker's all off, but you're back.
Too. It's an exhibition game for us too.
Yeah, people are kind of, Rod left because you messed up the keys. It's entirely possible, but that.
Okay, I think I got the mic
that's the case.
back.
You got the mic.
So let's start with health.
So yeah, health. Go ahead.
I have wondered about Jesse McCullough because we didn't see him for a long stretch in that second half, but then obviously he came back, so it wasn't a health-related issue.
That didn't even occur to me, but yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I was really wondering because I said this doesn't make any sense. They played everybody else in that group, other than maybe Jordan Scott. But in any event, looks like they came through fine, which is great. So one more to get through. I mean, I would say this. I would say that unlike last year, where I felt like they certainly had depth at enough positions, or at least guys were close enough to each other in terms of what they could bring to the court, that you felt like, well, Michigan State could probably withstand an injury as long as it wasn't, a long one, like a year-long one. This year, there are guys like if Fears or Carr were to go down in particular, I would also argue, although not so much on evidence of tonight, but generally the importance that Cooper has to this team as a 5-man, any of those 3 guys, I would be worried. But the team as it is, if they can roll this roster out, I think they're fine in terms of depth. So it was important to get through it in perfect health, and it looks like they did that. So check mark there, which is always the most important one in these games.
Yep. So the second key of the game is transition. I was just talking earlier that it looked pretty good, obviously, with Jeremy Wilson, especially. It looked like it should. I think they didn't probably get as much on the wings as maybe sometimes you expect, but it seemed all right. They had 24 points fast break, which is pretty good out of
That's
75
great,
points.
actually.
That's a third of their points. And we sometimes think that's not accurate, but it certainly felt accurate, like
it
during
did.
the game.
It absolutely did. Let me see if that doesn't tell me. I'm looking for this. Do you have it handy? What Bowling Green got in transition?
I can get it in a second here. They had 9.
Okay, that's a decisive advantage. And I thought at times Michigan State looked great. There was some stuff. I mean, the connection between Fears and Carr is obvious. We all know that, but you're still, when you see it in action, it's something else. That's
just going to get better this season too, don't you think? I mean, because even last year they weren't on the floor together as much as they're going to be this year.
Right. Yes, I think you're right. I think we'll see it more because the combination is going to be out there all the time. But again, if I had to nitpick, I would say the one thing I would like to see a little better is when Jeremy is off the floor, and it's not all divine, but it starts with him. Let's see a little more consistency in terms of pushing the ball. And that's a hard thing to get programmed, never mind reprogrammed, where you did a year in another system. It's a hard thing for guys who start at Michigan State to learn that. It takes a while. So I think we're going to have to be a little bit patient, but that would be the one thing I would like to see. To me, athletically, Ugochukwu is such a good athlete that there's no reason why. But again, at Michigan State, it's also fair to say that it's not really primarily about your athleticism. It's about your ability to throw the right pass ahead. Ball beats running human most of the time.
Passing ahead, yeah.
So he's got to learn that.
And I almost felt like with Javine, the best way a recent player, he strikes me sort of like Trey Holloman at his freshman year, where he wasn't making mistakes. He was getting up the floor quickly, but there was a difference in it that he wasn't attacking like we expect. And that's about the only difference. I mean, there's not a lack of speed of getting there, but it's just there was a difference in sort of attacking, getting to that basket.
But the encouraging thing is he did have that play in the first half where he went baseline and made the no-look dump to Coop for an and one. That shows me that he has it. He's not completely paralyzed. I'm with you. They're just overall, and it's something we didn't really get a chance to mention, but I guess it's worth talking about because transition's part of this. I did think one positive tonight on a team-wide basis was overall, I thought it looked a lot like last year in terms of how aggressive they were offensively.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Fears was more aggressive. We talked about that, but Colin Carr. But it was really team-wide. I mean, they shoot 20 free throws? So
I think so, yeah.
Not a great number, but it's not a bad number.
Yeah. And probably better than usual Michigan State teams, right?
I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah, right.
It's a start. And I felt like overall, if you were trying to measure the level of offensive aggressiveness rather than settling for stuff, they were pretty aggressive.
Yeah. All right. So the third key to the game was rebounding. And this, we went to Bowling Green out rebounded Michigan State 42-41. Both teams had 9 offensive rebounds, which both gave them essentially 24% offensive rebounding rate. So you could say, well, pretty good job by Michigan State in defensive rebounding, but bad offensive rebounding. Again, this is a team that I would say that you wouldn't expect them to totally dominate Bowling Green because Bowling Green does have some decent size, but you would certainly expect them to win this battle. And to your point, Michigan State was probably behind about 6 or 7 rebounds until very late in the end of the game. Now you could say every rebound counts, but
made up a lot of ground late. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're right. They do count. And it wasn't like the game was a 30-point laugher at that stage.
No, it was
walk
10 points
getting those rebounds.
Right.
No. So they count. But yeah, I knew That was going to be a talking point for Izzo post game. I knew it. And it's going to be a talking point for him in practice the next few days. I guarantee that. Yeah, very disappointing, because that was the thing coming into the season. My feeling was, all right, the defensive standard might be tough to match. When you're number 4 in the country in defensive efficiency, it's going to be hard to do that again. So,
yeah,
I still think, my expectations are they're still going to be a good defensive team, and those are still my expectations after tonight, but probably not at the elite level they were last year. But rebounding, I just saw no good reason why they should be at least as good as they were a year ago. And we did not see that tonight. You're right. They didn't have to win this, have a 45% offensive rebounding rate and give up 15% on the defensive end. No, you're not going to do that. But win it, and win it pretty easily. Yeah, I expected that. And it was disappointing to see kind of a step backward to some unpleasant experiences of the 2 or 3 years prior to last year.
The only thing I'd add is that if you compare to the 2 or 3 years prior, they were losing these rebounding battles to really small teams and teams that were bad rebounding teams. And at least this one didn't feel as bad. But obviously it should be much better.
Look,
it's exhibition.
The Towns kid looks to me, and we didn't get he played 6 games last year.
Yeah, he was injured all year.
So
right,
he looks to me, I can be frustrated by Jackson Kohler not doing a better job in combating him. But to be fair to Jackson, I think that kid's a pretty good player. From what I saw tonight, there's no reason that they shouldn't be thinking he might even be an all MAC caliber guy. We don't know. I think he's certainly got game. There's no doubt about that. When you could shoot that well at his size and you compete the way he did around the basket, hey, that's a pretty good combo. But yeah, just frustrating that Michigan State did not deliver at the level that we all expect them to in that area.
The fourth key of the game was jump shooting. And this is one where, everyone, a lot of consternation from last year. And as you mentioned, really good from 3 in the first. And I think we're mainly talking about 3-point shooting, not exclusively, but certainly
they didn't take a ton. Actually, the mid-range stuff was pretty good. Tang hit an 18-footer. We talked about McCullough hit one against the clock.
Ward had one, right?
Ward had one. Yeah, they hit some. I wasn't upset with the mid-range game, and they didn't have a lot of them. So those of you who think Izzo's anti-analytics and designs his offense shoot too many mid-range, they didn't take a ton of them.
No, I feel like it's not many of those players' game. I mean, outside of Tang and maybe Fort, but probably more
for
the
mid-range.
For the mid-range, like
I think
Josh
you're going to see
he lived there, but I don't see we have any players like that.
Yeah, I don't think they have anybody quite like that. You're right about that.
Yeah. So 3-point shooting was 32%, so not very good, but not a complete disaster.
Better than last year by tick. Disappointing second half.
Yeah.
To be clear about it, and so that's and it wasn't even just, I mentioned Divine, but there were a couple of others that they took. That when they took them, you can be open and still not have it be a good shot.
Yeah.
You've got to feel momentum in those situations. And what do we need? Are we in a situation where we really need a basket to stem the bleeding? Maybe, unless you're a dead eye, unless you're Kurtang or Trey Fort on this team, I think everybody else needs to be able to read situations,
Yeah.
and show
certainly
show some patience. And they didn't do enough of that in the second half. And I think that was part of the reason why they shot 2 for 11. So that was disappointing after a pretty good first half where I felt like the shots came in rhythm. The right guys in the right moments were taking them, and good results, 6 for 14. So not a total failure. I think you can see the pieces are there to be a better shooting team than they were a year ago, right? You could see it. Trey Fort, yep, he looked the part. Curtain didn't shoot well tonight, but I think we're all pretty confident he's going to have better nights. Jackson Kohler is going to be who Jackson Kohler can be, which is at least a mid-30s guy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Fears had a good night shooting the deep ball.
He looks like a mid-30s guy too, doesn't he?
Exactly. And we'll see about everybody else.
Yeah.
As Cohen or, Carson Cooper. Obviously, Jesse McCullough hit one that looked very good tonight. Does Cam Ward get into the act at some point? But, yeah, I mean, I'm not down about the shooting. It was a disappointing half, but overall, I'm okay.
And the fifth key to the game was the rotation. And this is the one, I think the biggest question, of course, is what's going to happen to the two. And that was the Kurtang. He ended up starting. And I don't think it really is any resolution. And to your point, I think, it's just going to depend on how they play defensively and what sort of dynamism on the offensive end may sort of make up for deficiency at the defensive end or things like that. So, then outside of that, I think the other rotational questions were, how is McCullough going to look? I think he looked okay. How is Ward going to look? I think he looks okay. And I think those guys you're going to feel comfortable having in the rotation.
Yeah, I feel very good about the post spots, having watched this tonight. McCullough and Ward were everything I expected them to be. And so that was really good to see. Jackson and Carson are going to have much better nights. I'd be surprised if we don't see a better effort coming next week against UConn from those two guys.
Yeah.
We know what they can be. But yeah, I feel pretty good about that. It's hard to, again, we said this is our first look at it in terms of what their rotation is going to look like. We certainly can't take too much from it. And I mentioned, there were a couple segments in that game where they had 5 reserves out there together. I don't think we're going to see that very much.
Yeah.
Whereas last year you could see that and be okay with it. This year, no. I don't think you're going to want to do that. But I do think that 2 spot, as much as I'm encouraged, particularly by Trey Fort, well, we're going to see a different level, obviously, next week when they play UConn.
Yeah.
And that'll be another challenge. Say, okay, how does Trey Fort look and how does Curtain look guarding guys at that level? I think Bowling Green's got a nice group of wings for their level, but it's not UConn.
Yeah.
So we're going to see something different. How do those guys respond? And then, again, offensively, do we see Kerr more dialed in offensively with the shot? He did. In fairness to him, it is worth mentioning. He had 4 rebounds tonight.
Yeah,
he did that
offensive rebounds early. Yeah,
he had two offensive rebounds, 4 total. So that is something else he brings to the table. But overall, I don't know that we got anything earth-shaking in this. Nobody in that reserve group came out and was so great. You're like, oh, this guy's got to start.
Yeah.
Right? So there weren't any huge upside surprises. And on the other hand, I don't think we saw anything particularly negative.
Yeah.
Not in a comprehensive way where you're like, oh, boy, they can't play that guy. Like, there was nothing like that.
Yeah, we didn't have a guy like a Xavier Booker out there where you're like, boy, this guy's got some serious problems. Maybe he can be so good in one end, but there was nobody like that.
The only one that would be close to that, again, I'm giving him a pass because he got into foul trouble so quickly, was Jordan Scott, because he just didn't have a chance.
Yeah, you didn't see him. Yeah. All right, so I guess we'll be back on a couple of days before the UConn game, which is on the 28th, I believe, and then the regular season begins on November 3rd, which is a Monday at the Breslin Center. So it's nice getting back. Obviously, say hi to my friend Bruce, and also got my ice cream sandwich, which I wasn't planning on having, and then I had just enough room in my belly to eat one tonight. But final thoughts in the game. I mean, it's of course an exhibition, and it's funny. I was saying before the game, when we were talking the pregame, I was like, well, it does matter these games, how you sort of your perception of the team. And then it was Bowling Green came back. They're down to 5, and then it was down 3, and then I think they had tied it up. And I really didn't care at all. It's like, I cared in the fact that I didn't want to lose just because it's kind of a bummer, but it didn't bother me as much as it would if it was some other team, basically any other team. And so you're totally right in that it definitely didn't feel as consequential as it probably should have if it was like a regular game. And I'm sure the coaching staff, although they coach to win, they probably don't get all tied up too much about worrying about the final outcome.
Well, Bowling Green played to win. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, no question.
I don't think Campbell came off the floor.
See, I think he played 38
he
minutes, so
had
pretty
played
much,
every
yeah,
minute, unless he came out toward the tail end.
yeah, must have been.
But I mean, that tells you where they were
Right.
at. And I did think Michigan State. I mean, look, Nick Sanders didn't play. The Walton twins didn't play.
That's true.
So, they were playing to win. We know some of the combinations were ones that we're probably not going to see very much. But, other than that, I did think, if it was, let's put it this way too. If it was a regular season game and you're up 8 with 2 and change to play, Cam Ward and Jesse McCullough aren't necessarily coming into the game at that
Right,
point.
for sure. Yeah.
And
if
Jeremy
you're up
Fears is going to
25,
be
you're gonna
on
have
the
Nick
floor.
Sanders. Yeah.
Right. So, but look, I think in all, I'm not thrilled with what I saw. I'm not overly down because I think the things that were negatives are things that I don't expect at this point to regularly be negatives. And I think they're all very much in the correctable category. So,
yep, totally agree. Well, we'll be back in a couple of days then as we just kind of get back into the groove here with our pregame for the UConn exhibition game. So until next time, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go Green.